Welcome to Interior Analysis. I'm Evan Westman,
I'm Jelani Kelly.
I'm David Jones.
and today we are talking about Steve Jobs, the 2015 Aaron Sorkin, Danny Boyle, Michael Fassbender movie, not the Ashton Kutcher one. Generally, I don't like biopics, but this is a major exception, maybe because I love Sorkin, and maybe because of, this movie specifically. I don't know exactly where this ranks, but I really like this movie. It might be my favorite Michael Fassbender performance. Magneto is very comparable, but I love him
That's
in
the
this.
only other one I know besides the one from Prometheus, which I didn't technically see. I watch a lot of video essays and a lot of stuff that happens around movies on YouTube, so I didn't technically see Prometheus. I think I saw a kill count on it or something crazy. That's the only the only other performance I've seen him in as well.
I didn't see that, but I saw the follow-up to that, Alien Covenant, where he plays, two different androids.
Okay, so maybe it was that one he was in. I don't remember.
I think
don't
he's in
follow the
both.
Alien franchise. Oh, okay.
Because I think the one again, I didn't see Prometheus, so maybe I'm not totally right about this, but I think the one he plays in that comes back in Alien Covenant, and there's, a new version of him.
Yeah, he
or
fingers
something.
his own flute.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Word.
I mean, I don't know whether we should flag that or not, but because technically that happens, just maybe not the way people are picturing it. But yeah, he's so good as Magneto, though. I really don't know whether I like him better as Steve Jobs or Magneto. Very different, but equally awesome performances. Have either of you seen Jobs with Ashton Kutcher?
Yes.
No.
Okay. I haven't.
I saw it when it was probably, I want to say 2016. It was just on TV, and I just watched it because I was like, oh yeah, this came out a few years before. And I don't remember anything about it. I think it was pretty mid-tier for even somebody who was just a casual viewer at the time. And now seeing this one, this is my first time watching this one. I do prefer this one.
Yeah, I feel like I would. I have a friend who, he's a tech person, so Steve Jobs is not necessarily a role model for him, but at least a, big figure in his field. And I remember he showed me stuff from both, and so I asked him about it. He likes them both evenly, but he said Jobs is definitely more positive than Steve Jobs, which not surprising because I would not call this portrayal positive in this movie, which I like that it does that. I'll get into that, but I don't think there's almost any way to construe this as positive.
I keep picturing Ashton Kutcher's face as Adam Scott's face instead, and I don't know why. I don't think I've ever seen Ashton Kutcher in anything.
Really?
Yeah.
I might not have seen him in anything either,
I'm
come to think of it.
What? You guys have never seen an episode of That 70s Show just in passing?
See, I thought it was
No.
Saved by the Bell that he was in. I don't know those shows.
Or I don't know, he was in a bunch of movies in the early 2000s, but definitely just ran That 70s Show in someone's college dorm, for sure.
Nope.
Or Cheaper by the Dozen.
Oh, I've
Nope.
seen that.
He's in
I
Cheaper by
haven't.
the Dozen. He's in Dude, Where's My Car?
Nope. I just keep picturing Adam Scott. Don't.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
I guess Cheaper by the Dozen's the only thing I've seen him in. Wow, okay. Yeah, but we're not here to talk about Ashton Kutcher.
Oh, yeah.
But it's fine. It's fine that we brought it up. Obviously, it's a comparison. Just one thing before we get into my initial reactions. I have watched the argument scene at the end between Jobs and Woz so many times. It's probably one of my favorite scenes ever. And we'll talk about Sorkin dialogue, but I could probably break down reasons, but that is just one of the best dialogue exchanges I have ever seen. And it kind of never gets old for me. It also just makes me want Seth Rogen and Michael Fassbender to be in a whole movie together. Not just the two of them, but them as the leads. Just
Seth Rogen didn't do his laugh.
But it's one of the best Seth Rogen. It might be
He
the
kind of
best.
does a little bit. It's just not as full.
He just does his he does his like regular voice, but I haven't seen him in a ton, but it might be the like, and obviously he always plays like dumb characters most of the time, so this is like a big kind of a different role for him. But he nails it, I think. Not to say that he's bad in his other stuff, but I think it's my favorite.
I mean, isn't he normally just playing himself?
Yeah, and like, but I feel like he's not doing anything. Like he's not trying to embody Steve Wozniak, as far as I can tell. He's still doing his voice. Like
Michael Fassbender at least goes up an octave for Jobs.
But I think it works. Like, I think it would be more distracting. Like, Michael Fassbender just does a great American accent to the point that I don't even notice with this. But if, like, Seth Rogen has such a distinctive voice that if he did something different, I think it would be distracting.
Yes.
So let's get initial reactions from both of you. I think, was it both of your first time seeing it?
It was mine.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Either of you can start.
Meh.
Wow.
That's it.
In a few words.
Yeah.
He said
I mean,
it's
there
mids.
was. You get enough talking from the movie, so not much I need to say here.
I do want to get into, like, we can get into it later with the Sorkin dialogue, but
Oh, we will.
did you like the style? Because I think this is your, I mean, I was going to save this for later, but this is your first Sorkin thing, I think,
It
right?
is. Yes, pop a bottle of champagne. Is that what people normally do?
You're forking Sorkin.
Yeah, it is my first Sorkin movie. I think you strategically chose this first because of that. We didn't start off with The Social Network.
Well, we don't start with the best.
Yeah, The Social Network is maybe the best movie ever made, so,
Oh, well, hold up.
like...
What? Are you betraying Inception?
Oh,
Inception
whoa.
is in competition, but like in terms of technical execution, I feel like I would stand by The Social Network more. They were both out the same
Y'all
year.
really sleeping on the SpongeBob movie.
Which one?
The first. What do you mean? The SpongeBob SquarePants movie.
Oh, you're not thinking of a sponge out of water?
What's next to cleanliness? Managerialiness.
Okay. Alright. Scarlett Johansson was Mindy, bro. Like, what?
That's what. See, it's connected. It's not random.
What?
I guess The Social Network had better look out then, because the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, it's coming for its ass, apparently.
It's already above it. Social Network needs to. Social Network's good though. Social Network is like, I would put it in the top 100 probably.
Yeah, well, apparently IMDb doesn't agree, because it's not even in the top
Really?
250.
The dialogue.
What about it?
That's a topic, so I'm just a
Oh,
dialogue.
okay. Well, nice.
Yeah. I do want to
Give 'em
hear your
breadcrumbs.
reaction to Sorkin dialogue, though, because...
Because that's all it was. It was just dialogue. That was 98% of the movie. Probably 99.
Facts.
I'll give you that. That's not incorrect. And I'll use that as a segue into my initial reaction. It feels like a play. And it's not bad in that way, but I totally could see this done. And I know Sorkin does also do some playwriting. I'm going to go see his To Kill a Mockingbird when it comes to the Academy of Music in Philadelphia in July. Boom, boom, boom. But yeah, it's expert dialogue. Sorkin makes 2 hours fly by with people just walking in various hallways and rooftops and whatever other corridor they're gonna put it in, but like it feels like it could have been a play, especially because they play off the like setting so much of it always being at a reveal or convention thing. I was like, yeah, this could totally be like a one set piece theatrical production that they changed to show like the evolution of time with his outfits and everything.
All they need is to build one set.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. All they need is their soundstage.
You don't even really need to, because within the text of the story, it takes place in an auditorium. You kind of have the set built for you if you're doing a play.
It's got to be behind the auditorium, though. Some of it.
Right, because like I guess it's backstage, but also you can like, I mean, the thing about plays is you can just kind of have a bunch of black boxes set up, and that kind of counts as like, this is another room, this is a hallway.
You really don't even need to have that.
Yeah, you just have people miming it.
Or just have somebody come out and say it to the audience and then walk away. That's what I would
Come to the
suggest.
door, and then they just mime opening a door, and that kind of works.
Nah, you just, this is the next scene. They're in an office, and then they walk off stage, but the props don't
Oh
change.
yeah, like a narrator.
I wouldn't recommend that, but that's an option.
If you're on a budget, yeah.
The play thing is true.
I guess I don't know if this was just because I was watching it on my computer, and if I was so close to the screen, and if I watched it on my TV, if the distance would have allowed. But like, I didn't like how the film looked. Like, it looked grainy for me, and I was like, was this shot on film? Was this digital? And I couldn't tell. I didn't really like the visual aesthetic of the film
I thought it was just like
overall.
that for the 80s, to give the 80s look, but then it stayed in the
Yeah,
film.
so I actually saw this I watched the special features last night. They shot each of the three stages in a different format. I think the first is film. I don't know, maybe 16 millimeter. I don't want to say that with too much confidence. I know the beginning was like they wanted it to be kind of grainier, and then they wanted. Okay, yeah, here we go. 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter, and digital, respectively. So there is a different actual visual feel to each one. I don't love that either. Like, style points, I guess, but also, like, I don't feel like there's anything that we're really gaining from it looking old. Like, we know it's the 80s. We don't need it to look like an 80s movie.
Tell that to Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah. Well, this wouldn't be the first thing I would tell Wonder Woman 84. Other initial reactions, David?
No, that's all.
Okay. One moment this is getting into my reinitial reactions. This was only my second time seeing it, but I totally forgot there's a moment where Steve Jobs sticks his feet in the toilet. I don't know why that happens. It seems really out of place, and I totally forgot about it. Couple of factual things. I wanted to check on like some stuff that they bring up. Apparently, a lot more of this is like based in fact than I thought. The bit about like he is actually adopted, or was, because Steve Jobs is dead now, but he was actually adopted, and he did deny that the Lisa computer was named after his daughter, and then later like admitted that yes, it was. I kind of figured that was made up when I first saw it.
Yeah, I looked up all that shit too. Like, I was on Wikipedia after and just like checking the dates and everything. And I was like, wow, Steve Jobs really is this cold-hearted man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any particular feelings about the historical, like the actual person. I do have feelings about Apple that I probably shouldn't share, just because they're
Yeah,
not.
Android user.
I had a feeling that was going to come up.
We're talking about an Apple movie, Evan. How could it not?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to apologize. You can deal with green chats.
No, I can't.
Yeah, you
And I
can.
expect a full letter of apology on my desk by Monday.
Then it's
It
good.
triggers me.
It ought to come from Apple because I am not the bad guy here.
Triggers me to St. Patrick Day.
I'm not. I don't have to defend myself on this. I'm not the bad guy here.
You do, but you're also the odd one out. You're not the bad guy, but you no, you're the bad guy.
Nope. It's definitely Apple.
Okay.
Plus, they talk about how Apple products are made to be incompatible with other things in this. Like, clearly, they have an agenda.
And they talk about it a lot.
Yes, they do talk about it a lot. Yeah, they're.
Did you know this film was recorded on an iPhone, Evan?
Take a shot every time they say end to end, and you'll be dead like Steve Jobs.
Oh,
That yeah.
I don't know. That was
They don't say end to end like that frequently.
I think it gets into like the double digits.
It probably does get into the double digits, but
Which,
about
like 10
slots?
shots, 15 shots, you're out.
oh yeah,
Slots.
under 2 hours. Yeah, me as a
Say
lightweight, I definitely tap out there.
I say slots a lot.
Oh yeah, Wass says slots all the time. He's like, people want slots.
People want
People
slots.
want options.
They want options.
I'm sorry, Seth Rogen's mad face is hilarious. Because he never looks mad. He just looks like he's throwing a tantrum.
Seth Rogen is Yogi Bear if Yogi Bear was a person.
It is not only a crucial part of Apple's history, it is a crucial part of the history of personal computing.
Imagine showing up like 10 years later at your friend's like CEO debut again, and you're still on the same shit about Apple II.
It's such a fucking good
Apple
scene, though.
II.
And I'm not censoring
No,
that
but
one
to
out.
Gelati's point, that's really funny. Because, like, he paid, like, some, like, Santa Monica therapist, like, for 10 years, like, millions of dollars to help work him through, like, just stand up to Steve Jobs. And 10 years later, he goes and he's like, I'm going to do it. And then Steve Jobs
already
is like,
did.
die, LOL.
He's doing it full times. Acknowledge the Apple II team. Acknowledge that something good happened that you weren't in the room for. I don't have any gripes with that scene. I don't think I ever could.
Just the logistics of that is funny. It was a decade later, dog. Let it go.
But do you not go rewatch the scene? Because it's not easy to get like what the point of the argument is on the first time. It's hard for me to like think of like how you're seeing it from the first time because I have it practically memorized at this point. But it matters because he's trying to like he's acknowledge the Apple
It's
II
just funny.
team.
It's a 10-year grudge, and it's just funny. And it's funny because he doesn't get what he wants. He thinks he wants to. He thinks he's gonna get what he wants. Like for 10 years he's rehearsed it. He knows he's right. He's brought it up before. He knows Steve Jobs is an asshole. He knows he knows the truth, but he for some reason needs Steve Jobs validation, and it's like in that way it's kind of like, damn, that's a little funny, like because Steve doesn't give it to him. Steve's always like, no,
You guys
and then
made
he's like,
the
really, Steve, really? He's like,
box of
no, I
garbage.
don't think so, no. And that's the thing too. It does become it goes into like a reading challenge. It's like they just start dragging each other. Like he's like, all right, you're gonna say this. He's like, well, I'm gonna tell you how I really feel about the Apple II. And I'm like, okay, Steve Jobs really is petty.
He was John because he
They
was
both
John.
are.
He was John because he wrote Ticket to Ride, and I wrote the Apple II. I don't know if I could like say that scene verbatim, but I probably know every single line in it.
You have an Android?
Shut up! Speaking of phones, though, have you guys ever seen the video of Steve Jobs launching the iPhone?
No.
Okay, I think I found that video by like looking for clips of this movie, and it was recommended after. I wouldn't recommend watching the entire thing. It's like an hour long, but the first 10 minutes will give you a sense of it.
Is the shark there?
The shark isn't there, but like if you watch it, like holy shit, does this guy know how to drop a product? It's
Was
like
he wearing a turtleneck?
I don't know if he's wearing the turtleneck in that one. I think he is.
I believe he is. Yeah, I believe it's the black turtleneck and the jeans. It's the whole getup.
Have you seen
I've
it?
seen I've seen the iPhone launch and the iPod launch.
Okay.
And like
Oh,
he,
1,000
as
songs in your
Sorkin likes
pocket.
to say, he knows how to play the orchestra. So yeah.
The musicians play the instruments. I play
Play
the
the
orchestra.
orchestra. I will say my favorite part is when in that scene, and then he's like, "It's all right, boss. I'll give you a pass." And then he's like, "The fuck?" He's like, "What? Like, do you understand? You're not God." That's when I was very much so enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably peak me and Steve Jobs.
I like the shark scene. That was fun. He was like, there are 36 other sharks that look just like this one. That's the shark. It was fun. There were also two other scenes I like, but we'll get into that later.
Okay. I'm glad you liked some of it, even if meh on the whole.
The later 2/3 went by quicker than the first third.
I think the middle one kind of drags, but
I kept checking the time. No, I'm pretty sure I zoned out on my phone at one point when they were talking about reinstating him as the Apple CEO. I was like, okay, what did I miss? And then I didn't go back. But I did keep checking the time in like the beginning of the movie. I was like, wow, this is going to be 2 hours of this? Okay.
yeah. Yeah, well, I think my first time watching it, I didn't know it was going to be split into 3 parts, and like this isn't really spoilers for The Social Network, but that opens up with like a kind of long dialogue scene that goes a few places and is like, kind of stylistic. So when I first saw because this opens with the argument about like get it to say hello. And I was kind of thinking like, oh, maybe they're going to do like a 20-minute scene of this and then it's going to turn into a regular biopic. And then, nope, okay, the whole movie's going to be like this. And it took me a little while to figure out that was what it was going to be. Now I'm on board with it, but I think I might have bumped on it. It's been a while since the first time I saw it. I think that may have been something I kind of bumped on at first. This time watching it, the only scene I really checked out with at all, or like can't really follow, I think it's near the end of the second segment, the argument between Steve Jobs and John Scully, where they're like flashing back to the...
Oh, God. Oh,
I think that one gets a little convoluted, and I kind of check out.
I wanted to throw up.
I think it's a little too long, and the flashbacks are like... And I was reading, because I read through the script. It's pretty much all dialogue, so it's long in terms of page count, but it doesn't take all that long to read, because, of course, like, dialogue and formatting. Like, it's a 2-hour movie, and I think the script is like 190 pages. That checks out. That scene, when I was reading it, like, even when I could, like, kind of sit with the words a little more instead of it just flying by, like, in the movie, I couldn't really follow it. But I feel like even with that scene, you still pretty much get what's happening. Like, Steve's getting kicked out of the company. You don't really need to follow all of it. But I think that's also a reason why, like, they probably should have made that scene shorter.
I was going to say, did they need to say all of it?
Yeah.
Steve, you're getting kicked out of the company. What? Screw you. I'm not getting kicked out. And then the board is like, yeah, screw you, we're kicking you out.
Yeah, they kind of could have left it at that.
Except made it needlessly more complicated as far as sentences go.
Yeah, well, that's Sorkin for you. I watched an interview with him, and I think one of the things he said was, like, at his, like, dinner table growing up, I forget exactly how he says it, but it was like, if you used one word when you could have used 10, you weren't trying hard enough.
What?
His point was everyone in his family is, like, really smart and talks like a Sorkin character.
That would be annoying as hell, in my personal opinion. But, so it's, like, theoretically, his example's like, if you're eating dinner and your mom or dad's like, how was your day? Instead of saying good, you're like, it was go into a whole Shakespearean monologue.
Yeah, I'm good. I'd probably, like, leave my family.
I kind of like Sorkin dialogue, so...
I do too,
No.
don't get me wrong. It's just, like, judging off his statements, like, that's what I'm assuming the practical application as to what he's saying. And it's like, oh my god, that would be exhausting at the dinner table. Especially teenagers, like, I'd be like, shut up.
Now I'm thinking of what Aaron Sorkin must have been like in high school.
I was just thinking, like, what if did he have a rebellious stage?
I mean, he did a
like...
lot of cocaine at certain points in his career. Like, he is a straight up former coke addict.
That makes so much sense.
He has been open about that.
I've seen so many things with him, so many videos, and I'm just like, there's something that I don't know. There's something off. What is it? There it is. Okay.
I was just thinking, like he'd say, like, less words. That's what I thought of as a rebellious stage, not hardcore drugs, man.
He turns into a silent monk.
What's, like, that was the extreme of what I was saying, but Evan just went left.
Yeah, he says more words when he does cocaine.
Probably.
Oh.
You want 10, mom? I'll give you 20.
No, but now I'm thinking of, like, he comes home from school. His mom's like, how was your day? Fine. Aaron? Fine? Yeah, Mom. Fine. Slams the door to his room. Fun in the Sorkin household.
And then he snorted cocaine.
I don't know I don't know, like, the whole history of that. I know he like has historically had a coke addiction, though. So Sorkin was going to be a topic, and since we're already talking about him, I guess we can start with that. So, as we said, I know, Jelani, this is your first Sorkin thing. What Sorkin things have you seen, David?
I have seen some of The West Wing, not all. I have seen some of A Few Good Men, not the whole thing, just clips. I have seen the entirety of The Social Network. I want to say there's one other, but I'm forgetting. Maybe that's it. And then now this.
Well, I haven't seen all of it, but I have a few others that I'm going to list off that I have seen, so maybe it's one of those. I have also, for his TV stuff, I've only seen like 2 episodes of The West Wing, and I have seen all of The Newsroom.
Oh, that's the one where dude went off. I saw that clip of Scully. I forget, Jeff something?
Jeff Daniels, yeah.
Daniels going off about America and then immediately switching it to reminiscing to an America that never existed. It damn sure used to be. No, it didn't. Shut up, Jeff Daniels.
I really like that show. I think that scene is a little bit like... people have definitely referenced that more than anything else. I think it's like a little bit... I almost want to say cute, like, by comparison to some of it. And Sorkin can get like that sometimes. Like, what I like about The Newsroom is that Will McAvoy, who the character Jeff Daniels plays, is so cynical, because it kind of allows him to imagine a more hopeful vision of journalism. I feel like I kind of want to talk about The Newsroom here because I want to do an episode on it, but it's also such a weird show to talk about. Nick Vonk got me into it last year, and now I just can't stop watching it. It's like one of my favorite shows now.
Mine's The Tinder Swindler.
I've heard people talking about that a little bit.
It was a movie. It wasn't a show.
Well, I'm sure it's I'm not going to continue that.
I hated it. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so Sorkin stuff that I've seen, all of The Newsroom, couple West Wing episodes, A Few Good Men, Molly's Game, Social Network, Trial of the Chicago 7, and Moneyball. I forgot that Moneyball was him, but he's not the only credited writer on it, but I feel like that's maybe like the least Sorkin thing out of all of those.
Did they talk like human beings?
Well,
is that why?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen that in such a long time, and last time I did, I didn't know who Sorkin was or that he wrote it, because I was way more into the baseball stats side of it that time. I feel kind of cliche saying this, but he is one of my favorite writers. Like, I know people make fun of his dialogue style, and, you know, I guess well-deserved, but smart characters saying smart things at each other, that does it for me.
Why?
It just does. Like, The Social Network is probably a better example of it, but even this, like, it's just really engaging. Like,
is J.K. Simmons in any of his stuff?
I don't believe so.
I need to see him yell at somebody.
Well, I feel like he could work pretty well with Sorkin. I just don't think he ever has, to my knowledge. He gets good actors to work with him, though.
I just want to watch Whiplash.
Yeah, I feel like Terrence Fletcher could be a Sorkin character, though.
If he spoke longer and said a bunch of nonsense and talked in circles. And what topic are we on?
Sorkin and dialogue.
Oh, we were on that one?
Yeah.
Oh, I have a lot to say.
Yeah, well, go off then. What? Because I especially want to hear from you, because this is your first Sorkin, obviously. What's your impression? Obviously, you might not be able to pin down his style since you've just seen one thing, but, like, what'd you think?
From what I've seen of his style, I don't care for it. I would never go out of my way to watch one of these movies. Good thing I'm part of this podcast, though, because we're trying new things here at Interior Analysis. There's a lot of that. I said 98. It's probably like closer to like maybe like the high end of 100% dialogue. This movie.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen anything Sorkin. So this is like, it reaches the same goal when it comes to like you're gonna hate this Raimi movie dialogue. But
go on, but be careful.
In that the characters don't speak like real people. So in Raimi, it's like campy and dumb fun in that dialogue. But this is like, and they don't speak like real people. It's like AI wrote the script. This is like a super advanced AI wrote the script. And it's like taking itself super seriously. And I have no idea what people are saying. I get it's a movie, but it feels like everyone is super smart in this movie because I have no idea what the hell anyone's talking about. I was not a business major. I don't understand 100% of the terms they're saying. I wasn't a technology major, so I understand 0% of the tech terms they're saying, the slots and the IBMs, and I know that's the company, but I didn't care for this style of dialogue. Again, they don't speak like real people. Everyone feels like a genius, and almost everyone is like super witty, and they all talk like the same person, and it's really annoying. I think you mentioned in your notes, even the daughter. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Why does she speak like them? She's like 9. Anyway, I think the only person that had a slight difference about them, two people, were Andy Hertzfeld and probably was until the end where he started speaking like Jobs.
I don't know. I thought you were gonna say Joanna. I feel like Joanna's the one character who kind of feels like she has her own voice.
Sure, but she's still like, I don't know what she's talking about either.
I don't know what she's talking about, but I definitely think Joanna. I don't know if it's how it's written or if Kate Winslet just added it because they kind of play on like the European accent thing, but it feels different enough. But it also, to your point about them just saying things that people don't understand, there was the one moment I thought, okay, Sorkin, I've been with you for a lot. Now this is even a little wobbly for me. It was during, I think it's the second act, and Joanna is talking to Jobs, and she's trying to like get him in some sort of mindset, and she references like either like a ballet or like a musical number, like just something from like the past, and then he says something, and then she's like no, and then corrects it, and then uses it as like an analogy for why he should keep going even if like the next gen fails. And I'm just like, what? How do we all have this? Like, did we all go to like musical art history like 1 through 3 together? Like, this is wild, this literacy.
It feels like there's some inside joke going on with all the characters that I, as an audience member, feel too dumb to understand. That's what this movie felt like. Only times I was engaged or locked in this movie, it's a conversation between Jobs and Andy Hertzfeld when Andy admitted to paying for his daughter's first semester at Harvard. Was it Harvard or MIT?
Yeah, Harvard.
I think it's Harvard.
Because I thought Jobs was going to punch him. Like, I felt tension, and I was like, oh, is he going to... Is there going to be an action line in this script? And then, nothing happened. Plus, he'd probably get... I don't feel like Andy would sue him anyway if he did hit him. Probably just eat and be like, I used to like you, Steve, or whatever he said. I thought it was going to show some sort of action. And then the scene between him and his daughter at the end is I wanted to see if it'd work out. I didn't know where they were going with this. I've never seen anything Sorkin before, so I didn't know if they were going to end it happy or not. And then she made the reference to the Jetsons, which for the way the machine looked. And I was like, really? What? Yeah, I don't like it.
So I'm not going to disagree with most of your assessments there. I just enjoy it more. Like, yes, Sorkin is famous for having all of his characters be insanely smart. And he's kind of bad at writing dumb characters. Like, you referenced it, I put it in my notes. I think a lesson to take from this is don't have a kid say Sorkin dialogue. It sounds really weird. And I've seen that with other characters, that not other ones in this movie, but sometimes we'll have somebody who is like explicitly supposed to be dumb, or like not dumb, but just like regular, like, and he doesn't know how to make them sound, regular. It's like a cartoonish dumb person, but they're even like too smart in how they're dumb almost. He kind of does a bad job at it.
Does he like have the dumb character say, I may be dumb, and then they go into this like super obscure analogy that only one other person would know about? Like, I don't... Is that how he does it?
It's more like they're oblivious. They're almost like the one-off sitcom character who like doesn't realize how stupid they are. it tends to feel out of place because like he has some funny moments in his stuff. I think he doesn't shy away from comedy when it suits him, but none of his stuff. I think there's some good zingers in this. I laugh sometimes.
Oh boy, can you list them? All
Not
two?
off the top of my head, but there's some exchanges in the newsroom that are hilarious. There's a guy's talking to his therapist, and he goes, "Anyway, I was like clicking around," and he like talks about like finding some like relationship advice site online, and the therapist goes, like, "You want me to expect that you just happened to click over to like this site unintentionally?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's the middle of the night. There's nothing else to read." Yeah, except the entire rest of the internet. I think about that exchange like daily.
It's a knee slapper.
It's a knee slap. Yeah, I can hear you both laughing so hard over there.
Yeah.
He has some zingers, I think. Again, Jelani, I think you're gonna really like The Social Network better than this. I really hope you appreciate it.
Well, yeah, because that's more of a movie. This is a
Yeah.
play with like a super high budget
Also, it has actors
and
you
camera
like.
angles.
So, I mean, I know you like Fassbender at least. A
No,
bit.
I like Fassbender.
But it's more
I
like
like Seth too.
But they are in kind of like non-traditional roles for them. Like Andrew Garfield is playing, an Andrew Garfield character in The Social Network. And I feel like he kind of got like Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network talks like a robot or like a machine, I would say, not a robot, but he's like ultra fast. But Andrew Garfield's a lot more grounded in that. He feels more normal. And so do like several other characters.
Does Jesse Eisenberg talk like Lex Luthor or his character from Zombieland?
I mean,
No.
he talks really fast.
And he always kind of has like a scowl and like a pointed tone.
Yeah.
He looks like somebody I probably wouldn't like in that movie.
You're not meant to.
Okay.
But there were a couple other things you called out. He likes writing really smart characters. He also likes writing smart characters who know how really smart they are and like to flex it on people. And, I also can't follow a lot of the tech jargon that they're using or the business stuff.
There's a lot of it.
There's
a lot of it. Like you, dog.
Yeah.
Come on, bro. I know it's about the guy that made the phone I'm recording this on, but like, or owned the company, CEO. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, you couldn't have cut some of that.
Well, what I like about it, and maybe this is like, granted, I'm biased because I've watched several of these scenes many times, so I actually like have been able to sit with it and kind of know what they're saying a little better. But first time, I think I probably didn't follow a lot of it because it, in Sorkin fashion, it moves lightning fast and it's pretty technical, so it's easy to get lost. And I think he does sometimes do things to like dumb it down a little for the audience. Again, I think The Social Network does better at that. This, I think he doesn't so much. Like, I don't think he's trying to give us room to catch up. But what I do like about his style is, in many cases, most cases, I would say, you can still understand the dynamic of what's happening. So where it does, I think where he ends up being a little bit weaker is when you do need to know what they're saying, like the John Scully argument in the second, like the middle act. Because I think that one, if you don't understand like the business deals that are happening there, you kind of get lost. But there's a lot of other places, like you don't have to know anything about what Steve Jobs is arguing about with Steve Wozniak about like the open system and end-to-end compatibility and all that. You don't have to know what that means to understand that they disagree on how computers should be made. We still get that. So at the very least, like, he's keeping that thread running through it, and like I feel like he's giving us enough that like we can follow it. But again, if you move that fast, you're gonna lose people. I think it's an acquired taste. I am definitely somebody who really likes Sorkin, and this goes really hard with Sorkin's stuff, like his style. So I understand that like a lot of people don't like this as much as I do. I'm not going to apologize for liking it, but also like, I'm not going to argue with the fact that like you didn't engage with this the same way I do, Jelani, because
Punch me, I bleed.
well,
Oh,
and yeah, punch me out. I mean, the thing is though, like I was not super here for you bringing up Raimi at first, but also I think it is somewhat of a fair comparison.
because it's elevated and it's elevated in a different way. But
And you again, like you're right, Sorkin characters do not talk like real people any more than Raimi characters
Yeah,
do.
that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna argue with you there. I've heard other people say like, oh yeah, Sorkin characters aren't real, but I will say that Sorkin dialogue is a lot better than Raimi dialogue, but it does kind of fall prey to some of the same things because one thing that I think Sorkin does is he takes big swings. So he doesn't quite end up in like camp territory, but he ends up close to it.
I feel like he gets closer to melodrama than camp.
That's probably, yeah, I think melodrama is a good term. And I think those are kind of like cousins to each other, melodrama and camp. And yeah, I think melodrama does work for the Sorkin equivalent because I think what happens with him is sometimes he'll take this big swing with a certain line. Like I play the orchestra. That's a big swing where it's like it can either be like, oh man, mic drop, that was like boss, or it can be like, all right, dude, pump your brakes there. Like you didn't have to go that hard with it. I could take or leave the orchestra line. And there's other Sorkin lines like he's like the baseball player who swings for the fences every time in some respects. Like they can hit a lot of home runs, but when they strike out, they can look pretty stupid. I think there's lessons to be learned from that in both regards. Like it can be tempting to like keep a zinger of a line that's like sounds really good, but also like have somebody who's going to tell you when it sounds dumb. And sometimes I think Sorkin does have people who tell him that it's dumb, and sometimes he doesn't. Another thing that he kind of does that with is he'll often have characters who give like big emotional speeches. And we kind of get, I think the one for this movie is Joanna like lecturing Steve about being a father at the end when she's throwing the papers. I don't love the throwing the papers, but that speech works better than some Sorkin speeches for me. I guess I'm somewhat of an apologist or defender of him. Not that he like exactly needs defending because he's very acclaimed, but he is somebody who has also faced a fair amount of criticism, and I think some of that is deserved. But I think his style is still worth emulating. I don't want to say imitating, but like I like to learn from him in how I write dialogue and like how like the rhythms of dialogue work and like having characters have misunderstandings. My characters are never Sorkin smart. I tend to not do like the big like if you took this specific history class you're gonna know this thing. Like I think he goes a little hard with that sometimes where all the characters are just like weirdly familiar with this really obscure fact. But I think that technique of like having like a mutual understanding between characters so they can kind of get on the same page, I like that as a dialogue technique. You just have to be careful about the example. And probably I've picked the wrong one too in some cases. But at the end of the day, like I like Sorkin dialogue and I think it is worth imitating, even if it's not realistic. I like to add a little more realism to it, or at least try to. Whether I succeed is a question for people who read it, I guess. Anyway, other thoughts on Sorkin dialogue? I kind of went off for a little bit there.
Nah, you said all that like a true Sorkin character.
Well, my Twitter username is Punk Rock Sorkin character at the moment, so...
Oh my god, it is.
Wow. There we go. On the podcast here. No, but my take on the dialogue, I mean, you said a lot and a lot of it I agree with. Like, and it's like Sorkin, he has a style, and that's part of what puts the butts in seats and why they advertise it being a Sorkin movie. Because the fact of the matter is, not a lot of writers get advertised. Usually, it's the actor or director that they're putting on the front bill to put the butt in the seats. But Sorkin, Jordan Peele, other people, they're really kind of a slim bunch who have now also gone into being writer directors who are just able to sell because they have figured out a way about them that people like. And to me, it appeals to me. That's why I said I'm gonna go see To Kill a Mockingbird in the summer. I like.
You saw the Nope trailer?
I
What is
did.
that gonna be about?
I think it's gonna be like sci-fi horror. That's my guess. Is he's
Deadly
gonna go
Cloud.
sci-fi horror with it, which I'm excited for.
It's a killer cloud that represents America.
Okay. Is it the cloud supposed to be like big smoke as like the institutionalization of like the criminals for weed that were just like wrongly put in,
Yes.
and he's
And
gonna come
then
at Joe
they're
Biden's
saying-
neck?
And then they're saying the black people are saying no to the situation.
Oh,
'cause
word.
You say no to drugs, kids.
Right. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs.
Abraham Lincoln said that.
He did. But yeah, the Sorkin dialogue, it's great. It has his style. My issues with it in this movie, there's like a few. I'm not sure if it's I didn't read the screenplay. I don't know if it's writing based or if it's editing based, but yeah, the intercutting with the flashback was weird, especially because like I think before that, I don't know if you guys felt this, but like I feel like we kind of already knew like you've been booted from Apple, so there's bad blood. Like this is already kind of like some turmoil. Like I feel like it was kind of heavy-handed, and it was just kind of pulled you out of it, and was like really long.
And he was sitting in the room like a villain.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
with the light.
prior to.
Yeah.
This is why you do the security team.
And the other two moments was the ending conversation he has with his daughter, and the whole like, I'm gonna make an iPod, and there's gonna be 10,000 songs in your pocket, or 500 to 1,000, and da 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 da. And it's like, and then he's like, they're going back in. Do you want to come see this? And I'm like, is this him supposed to have an arc? Because like, I feel like Steve Jobs as a person didn't have an arc, and like shouldn't have an arc, and in the movie doesn't have an arc. But like, is that them trying to have an arc? Because he was all like, go to school, don't be here. But now he's inviting her backstage and is naming and proudly picking something out for her, opposed to hiding it like he did with lying about Lisa. So I don't know. But that, I didn't feel it. I was like, I feel like I should be feeling emotions right now, and I'm not feeling it. I'm kind of cringing. The Woz thing, there's a cut towards the end where it's just Steve in the garage, and he looks over at Seth Rogen, and he goes, Woz, and then they cut back to the iMac convention, and I'm like, what? Is that supposed to symbolize like his regret, like the loss of the friendship? Like, I was like, what?
Yeah, so some of that, I can tell you, like, a lot of the intercutting is built into the script. The whole scene where, like, they're flashing back to, like, Woz and Steve in the garage, that's in there. Same with the John Scully, like, long intercut sequence, that is all built in there. What's not, at least as I recall, is, like, some of the insert shots that they have. Or like the montages are in there, but I think Danny Boyle went a little more stylized on that than Sorkin necessarily intended. I guess it's like yes and no, but for the most part, like I think anything that's like pretty much not an insert shot or a montage is like Sorkin pretty much wrote it exactly the way it is in the movie, at least based on the script that I saw. I do want to get into his arc, though, if we're good with moving to that right now. So, David, you kind of said your piece on that. At least it sounded like it. Jelani, what did you think of his arc?
He ain't got none.
Do you not buy it, or you think he doesn't actually have one?
Like, you heard what I said. What do you think about the evidence that I pull contextually? I feel as though it doesn't hit, but I can't argue that it's not there, you know?
I don't think his little words are enough to make up for 19 years or just being an asshole all around. So no, I don't. I feel like they try to force an arc. It ain't there.
I agree. And did this come out before or after The Social Network?
After.
Okay, because it feels there's a similar vibe to Mark's like disconnectedness from reality that Steve has, and I feel like his arc, it's subtle in that movie too, but I don't know. Maybe like, you write one a killer script with a subtle arc and it's like hard to do it again. And I know like I agree. I think it's there, but I think it's really trying hard to be there. It doesn't feel as organic as some of his other more notable projects probably.
Yeah, I kind of like the attempt in a way, but also like I agree it doesn't really land. Like Jelani, I think you said it pretty well. Like his words don't make up for 19 years of bad parenting, and I'm okay. Like what I like is I appreciate that he is making an attempt at the end. Like I like that for him. I think the movie tonally is a little bit too positive on that because he does say like I'm poorly made. For one thing, that doesn't read like an apology to me. That sounds like blaming God for you being a bad dad. I don't think it's a good apology, but I do like that it is the first time we're seeing him like own up to making a mistake.
That's like him telling his daughter, "I was adopted,"
Yeah.
and that's it. No follow.
Yeah, I didn't get that part either. Cause like, but you abandoned her, and
I was adopted,
I was abandoned.
and then
We could use A
and
words.
then
Apple.
abandoned.
Yeah, it's like, and especially like the music they have at the end feels way too positive, and they're like, they end it with like, "Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Jobs." And it's like, is that supposed to be like, okay, now we like this guy?
And then he's like walking over to her, and she's like getting happy. Like, is this all forgiven now? Because he said he's gonna make the iPod for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a.
He
bit
didn't even
more
name
to
it Lisa.
I know. And like, what is she gonna get like 100% stocks in the iPod? Like, what is the revenue stream she's getting for this since it's inspired by her and her Walkman that he thinks is disgusting?
Why does he like start walking back towards her, and that's when they end it? Because he was
That's what I'm
walking
saying.
out
That
in
confused
slow
me.
motion,
Does anyone have
and
any
then
like read into that?
and then she starts smiling, and then he starts walking back,
Slow
and
motion.
then before he and listen, I don't. Evan, what was this movie, man?
I'm not gonna defend the ending. The ending is one thing that I'm not really a fan of. What I like about them going for an arc is like, in terms of like what they took from Steve Jobs' real life. Like he did initially deny being Lisa's father, and then later he didn't. So that is an objective thing from real life that you can take, and there is a change there. So if you want to weigh into an arc, I think that is the one.
Really? You think? Hey, no, I'm not your dad. 19 years later, oh well, you kind of do look like me.
I don't think the way they went about it is necessarily right, but I do think the instinct of like choosing that for his arc is a good instinct. I think they try to wrap it up too nicely at the end. I'm not here to defend that. Like, in all regards at the end, I still think he's a major asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Even with his moment of redemption at the end, I'm like, you're still a bad guy. You're a bad dad.
I agree.
You're a bad boss. You're not even like, you don't even make Apple products like that people
Macintosh
can
isn't even
use.
like a bomb apple. They couldn't have said like Honey Crisp, like, or I don't like green apple, but like Red Delicious. Like Macintosh is like the soft, nasty one.
Yeah, but Macintosh does sound better for a computer. Like, just as a word, I agree. Like Macintosh apples, yeah, they're kind of C tier, maybe even D tier as apples go. It does sound kind of nice,
Is there an apple tier list?
probably.
Granny Smiths are high up.
There's a lot of apples out
I
there.
used to like them, but now they're like too sour for my teeth, and I don't know why. I don't like them being too sour for my teeth. I'm kind of mad at my teeth for that. Like, why did they betray me?
Teeth do that sometimes.
I appreciate the silence.
You got to have a conversation with your teeth, Jelani. I mean, it's gonna be tough
Yeah.
because they're in your mouth, but we'll make
Yeah,
it
but
work.
do it soon because I don't want you and your teeth to have a falling out.
I think that's the hardest Evans ever left.
Maybe on the show. Ooh, that was pretty good.
David.
That was pretty good.
I'm not gonna come up with anything better than that, so we might as well just move on. What's like the best type of android? Like, with a cyborg? Like, if there's an Apple tier list, is there like an Android tier list? Like a cyborg and just a plain old robot?
I don't know.
About an AI? Does count?
Maybe.
It's like the Macintosh equivalent for androids.
The OnePlus 9? That's my phone. Maybe that's an A tier.
I don't know.
All right.
That's gross, Evan. You should feel bad.
Apple's the one who needs to feel gross. I'm not. I'm gonna keep saying it. I'm not the bad guy here. Apple is the bad guy.
There's a joke there.
Probably. So I like this approach to a biopic. As I said at the beginning, like biopics, straight ahead biopics are not my thing. And both Aaron Sorkin and Danny Boyle have said that they didn't want to write a traditional, what they call a cradle to the grave biopic, where like, you start at the beginning of someone's life and if they are dead at the end or like at some late point that kind of makes sense. I really like that this is not that, because I find most cradle to grave biopics very tiring, or even ones that are just like kind of more straightforward. Like, I love how the montages in this just skip past all of the things that usually bore me with biopics, where it's like we don't have to worry about anything that happened with Apple. Like, it gets referenced, and we talked about the John Scully scene with like Steve getting kicked out, but like, even though I don't like that scene, I much prefer that to like the more traditional version of that we probably could have gotten. It's just like people's lives tend to not be terribly dramatic in how they're ordered. So I always find it frustrating when movies about real people feel like they have to balance, like, this is when this happened, but also we want to make it dramatic. So we're going to try to do both and then end up kind of doing neither, where everyone's like, that was boring. And other people are like, that it didn't actually happen like that. So like, I really like this approach where they're not really pretending.
Where it's all boring.
What?
What?
Say that to my face, man.
Okay.
Heard the word boring in there. That didn't sound positive.
No, boring's always the positive word.
Always, yeah. Okay. Sure. But yeah, I know it doesn't work for everyone, but I much prefer this character study approach. There's a quote I found, or I heard from Danny Boyle in one of his interviews. He said, these are portraits of people, but the essence of something about them is there. And that just feels like so much better of an approach, where you're not trying to be like, this is like historically what this person was. I feel like no biopic actually does that well. So this approach where we're like, what kind of person were they, is maybe, or could they have been, is maybe a better approach. It's at least more interesting, I think. Counterpoints?
I am happy that most of Steve Jobs' shots were like mid shots or close ups, and like if they ever did a wide shot, you usually couldn't see his shoes because Mans used to wear righteous New Balances. And that used to get me. It feels like a play and not a biopic.
Yeah, I don't really like biopics. 'Cause they're never about people I care about, so I don't even care.
I mean, I think the only biopics that I do like, I don't care at all really about Steve Jobs as like an actual person. Like, I did not watch this because I was interested in him. I watched it probably for the fact that it was Sorkin. I don't really remember why I decided to watch it the first time, but like, it's a genre that I feel like obviously you can do it well, but there are a lot of common problems that I think come up with it. And like the only times that they work, I feel like they are non-traditional. Like Rocket Man is an example of that. And granted, I'm biased there because I do really like Elton John. So like that is a case where I'm kind of am like invested somewhat beforehand. But they do a lot of interesting things there, and even as an Elton John fan, I don't think I would have liked a straight ahead biopic of Elton John. It sounds like this isn't a like preferred genre for any of us, but if any of us were like either of you, if you were tasked with writing a biopic, how might you approach it?
I would do kind of, I'm not sure if it was Sorkin or Danny Boyle who said it, but like all you can do or try to do is like capture the essence of the person, and hopefully the essence is, you figure out what that is. And it's like when I saw Respect recently, I think that's the most recent biopic I've seen besides this, and like I was glad it didn't go all the way to Aretha Franklin dying. Like it stopped at her singing and the church for Martin Luther King. And like, okay, it was like, okay, this felt like an Aretha Franklin origin story and not so much an Aretha Franklin biopic. And I enjoyed that. And it captured like what she was about and what she stood for. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to take the good and the bad. And with Steve Jobs, there's more bad. And you have to present it fairly. And I think Sorkin does it. And it's just, as far as Steve Jobs is concerned, his essence is a little bit darker. And I enjoy the moments where he lets it show, where he's like, I'm broken or I'm not perfect or whatever. And like, you kind of get this whole like, okay, this is why he strives to make perfect things, because if he can make perfect things, then maybe he's not totally imperfect. But I feel like it doesn't deliver that theme super strongly. It's kind of in scattered moments, and it's not super coherent and consistent enough for me to like really, after watching this biopic, be like, yes, this was like the right choice to tell this story. But it certainly wasn't a terrible one. Like I think I'm gonna keep saying it, but like if they made a stage adaptation of this and it was like on off Broadway, I would see it. Like this is like a good 2 hours in the theater. Like it's good drama. But I'm not sure as far as biopics are concerned if it's like the best way I would tell the story of the person.
Cradle to grave.
That's how you'd approach it?
Probably because that's what will make money, I think. I don't know. I don't watch biopics. But, or I'll just go like important / memorable moments from a person's life where the audience just goes, hey, I remember when that happened. I remember when that was in the news. And maybe some small things that people might not have known behind the scenes. But other than that, I probably wouldn't write a freaking biopic.
So you do more of a straightforward approach?
Yeah, I don't care for the way this was done. I didn't know this movie existed until you told me about it, so.
I would be a fan of it if it was more, like we said, like his arc really is in his relationship with Lisa and kind of in his relationship with Waz, but like that's really more of a stretch. And I just, if it was more about that, if it leaned more into that, if it had drama for that reason and not just like the super mindful but seemingly mindless arguing that happened for 2 hours. And it's like, I wish that we saw his character kind of grow and change in that way instead of using, I think Sorkin maybe got a little too excited with the whole like, I'm going to show Steve Jobs at 3 different conventions, and it's going to be him at 3 different points in his life, and it's going to be super cool and super impactful because like the parallel, and oh my god. And I think because he's Sorkin, people were like, yeah, go off. But when it actually sits as a 2-hour movie, it doesn't hit as hard as I think he maybe imagined it would.
The closer he gets to Lisa, the further he gets from Waz. Will his daughter drive a wedge between his longest running
or like
friendship?
Waz and Lisa like get married. And he's like, how could you do this to me, Waz? And he's like, me? How could you do this to the Apple II team?
Yeah. I was just thinking that. Me? What about the Apple II team, Steve? What about them?
Then it just turns into the room and he does, "You are tearing me apart, Lisa."
Oh, wait. He does have... Oh, my God. Why does she have that name? Oh...
And then it turns into Batman v Superman, where Lisa finds a Lisa computer.
She's talking.
What is your name right there?
Why do you have that name?
Why do you have that name?
I would watch that movie.
This is a better biopic, easily.
I would have so much fun watching that movie.
The so bad it's good Steve Jobs biopic.
It's just called Steve this time instead of Jobs or Steve Jobs. Steve. Who's Steve? Oh.
And he's playing. And instead of casting an actor, they just have the Minecraft Steve character. But everyone else is live action.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's just what makes the most sense.
Oh no. Well, if we want to tank a movie.
And we get somebody really out there to voice Steve Minecraft Jobs.
Like what's that one dude's name?
Who?
What was not Professor Hickey? Is it Michael McDowell? Yeah, him. Let's get him to voice Steve.
I think this is gonna win some kind of award. Maybe not a good one, but it's gonna get attention.
What's the guy from Tommy Wiseau?
Tommy
What
Wiseau.
if he did Steve? Yeah, that's a good one. Or James Franco impersonating Tommy Wiseau. Or, even better, Dave Franco impersonating James Franco doing Tommy Wiseau.
Wow. I think that's the move.
I like your pitch. Here's mine. Mike Myers doing Austin Powers doing Steve Jobs with a side voiceover by Ryan Reynolds that they never really explain. And he's just constantly fighting with Austin Powers Steve Jobs.
Wait, so is Deadpool in the movie or Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah.
Or you just said yeah. You didn't pick an option.
Oh, hold on. Yes.
This is the groovy next box, guys. It's perfectly 90 degrees.
It's just
Yeah, baby. It seems to me like where the expert was.
I don't think we can make this any better.
Nope. Probably not. Unless maybe Nick Cage plays Lisa. I was about to say Steve Wozniak, but I'm like, no. Nick Cage is Lisa.
Danny Pudi
no, please.
impersonating
Nick Cage playing Lisa, but at all ages and keep it the same.
Daddy, I drew a picture.
Daddy, I can play on the computer. Can you show me more on the computer? It's just Nick Cage like pigtails.
No, Nick Cage should just look like Nick Cage.
No, that's what I was saying. Daddy, did you name the computer after me?
Did you name a computer after me, Dad?
What were we talking about?
How would we approach a biopic? Apparently, this is how we would approach a biopic. I was gonna say, like, as a serious answer, I would probably try to go for a character arc, because that's usually how I approach a story. I would be nervous about doing a biopic because I think inevitably when you do, you end up changing people's perceptions about the real life person, even if you kind of try to not. And it's never going to be accurate, I don't think. At least not in every respect. So I would hope to try to do something a little more like this, even if it's not quite as popular. Like, I feel like this does a good job signaling, like, this is not reality. Like, these product launches did not go like this in real life. Like, Sorkin has said the one thing in this movie that happened in real life the way it happens in the movie is getting the Mac to say hello at the beginning is the only thing that, like, actually happened before one of these product launches. So I would probably try to go for the more, like, what does this kind of person represent? And I feel like this is kind of going for that.
I think that's also why, like, the abstractness extractive. I don't know what the word is. How abstracted this film can be at certain points, especially with the character work. I think that's why I also see it leaning more towards theater, because like I can just so see now like sitting in the audience and like when Steve's like looking out at the audience yelling at Waz, and like Waz could just be standing in an aisle, and like it turns the audience into the people in the room. Like it could work really well, but
I think it'd be really funny if Waz was like really far away and nobody could hear him.
right, like it's in New York and he's in Boston,
That's not what I meant.
and they just talk
Kind of
about,
like the last shirt, Steve.
cups with his fucking string. They're like, yeah, yeah.
That's not what I meant. I just meant like really far back in like maybe the lobby or something.
That does kind of happen in plays sometimes, though.
It does. I just saw Company, and that's why I thought of it, because you first meet the cast, they come through down the aisle, and I was like, oh, they could just incorporate that. Like, it's so much of this script and the story and the screenplay and just the movie, I guess. I'm like, you could really so easily just a few changes here. It's like a tummy tuck, just like a snip and a tuck and a fold, and here you are, Broadway. Like, come on, Sorkin, get a Tony.
So I was gonna ask, like, should this have been a play? David, I'm hearing from you that you think yes.
Heck yes. Oh my god, this shines as a play. This is like, as I said earlier, this is a play with a very nice budget. Like this, so much of this, and the best parts of this especially, are easily transferable to the stage. And I think the intimacy of it, of like being kind of behind the scenes during like a huge product launch, and getting like the backstory and all the drama between all the characters, that'll like bode really well with that kind of like setting. And then using the auditorium of the theater as the actual auditorium in the play for like dramatic purposes would make it really visceral, and because it's like really small and compact, and you're experiencing it live with like maybe like 300 or 400 people, it's like totally the impact I think would have been so much stronger than taking it as a movie, which usually is better for facilitating huge, giant, grander, more epic, I guess, stories than this, which feels more like quiet and intimate. But it gets loud at certain points, and I think it gets loud in its silence too, and that can also really be felt in theater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was having a conversation with a friend a few days ago because we went and saw the musical Hadestown.
How was it? I really wanted to see it, but I missed it.
I think I'm not the person to sell you on it. It didn't work for me as well as it does for some people, I think.
You might like Heaven City then.
Yeah, maybe. Is that a real thing, or are you just making a pun?
I'll let you decide.
Okay. Anyway, we were having a conversation afterward about like adapting stuff to different mediums and like what can work and what doesn't, and like even if you have the exact same thing happening in a play versus a movie, it hits differently. I think you were kind of alluding to this, David, like that when characters are silent, that can hit harder in a play. Like imagining the argument with Waz at the end in a play, like I think it hits pretty hard in the movie, but you still kind of have that like ambient sound and I think a little bit of score underneath it. I can kind of imagine that scene in a play, like the room just going dead silent at a couple of points. You can only kind of get that from theater. I don't know if I would prefer this as a play or not. I think it could work just fine as a play. Maybe better, but I am more of a movie person, so maybe I personally would enjoy the movie better. But I think, this has like, 8 major roles at best, and you could cut everyone else. Like, you can cut out Shiv Roy.
Yeah, you just need Lisa, Jobs, Joanna, Scully,
Waz.
Andy, the other Andy, and Waz. And
No,
then
you don't need the other Andy.
But the other Andy you could use as like a production joke, and then they can also be background and like other miscellaneous characters if you like get a good enough director so it's not confusing.
That could work. I think for her inclusion as a character, she's very expendable. Well, you also need Chris Ann, but like that's a small cast, And I feel like it is something where it would be interesting to see like different people's takes on these. Like Michael Fassbender does an amazing job with this role. Like he got nominated for an Oscar, and he was up against Leo the year he won. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But as much as I love DiCaprio, I honestly would have preferred that Michael Fassbender won the Oscar for this. But in any case, like I think it's a role that like a stage actor could really sink their teeth into. I think all of these are. In that sense, I see it working very well as a play. Even like the movie things that this does with like the montages and the inserts, like I think they work, but they also don't really need to be there. They're nice, but they're pretty extraneous. Should have been a play, I don't know. Could be, absolutely. Jelani, what do you think?
I don't care either way. It sounds like it should have been a play because there's no action. There's a lot more dialogue than action. I'd be surprised if he wrote any lines of action for this.
And that's a good writing tip. To anyone listening, I don't know why it took me like 2,000 years, but like, look at the margins. There's a reason the margin space for action and dialogue swap hardcore plays to stage plays to screenplays. Mm-hmm. So let that inform how you write going on, people, because that's it.
Well, I think I'm going to take that immediately, because part of why I wanted to pick this episode is I've kind of been starting to write something that I've been going back and forth on whether it should be a play, and I'm finding that like as I'm writing it in screenplay format, the scenes are getting to be pretty long for a movie, and it's a lot of dialogue. You might have just swung me over there, David.
It took me a while. I literally like I had like it was like I don't even know like my 5th or 6th like meeting with Caulfield, and like I was just rambling to him because he's so easy to ramble to, and I was just like talking to myself, I guess, and I was like, I guess that is why the margins are like that, and he just kind of looked at me like, are you kidding? Like, how, like, you got final draft like 4 years ago, fall semester, and now you're just putting 2 and 2 together, and I was like, I'm sorry. I failed.
I imagine him saying that too. Oh.
Yeah. He wouldn't sugarcoat that.
Mm-mm. He'd be laughing in your face. Was he laughing in your face?
Yeah, of course he was. He was like, that's funny. Like, are you kidding?
But I feel like he can do that without being a total dick also.
Oh, no, I love Caulfield. That's said with full love, because it is funny. It's like, oh my god. Because I guess, I don't know. You do these things. You don't think about it like that. But then it's like, yeah, that's what the exact media of this wants.
One last point. I didn't want to bring it up to get us on a community tangent. 19-year-old Lisa really reminds me of Britta.
Oh,
somehow, yeah. I don't really know what it is. It's just like they have the same energy or something.
I feel like I should be saying Lisa's the worst.
Britta's definitely not the worst, but okay. We good on that? Any other fan castings for our fake Steve Jobs biopic? Digs at Sorkin? Anything like that?
I'm really cold.
All right. We'll move to the boilerplate then.
Is there heat near it?
I mean, heat is required for boiling, so sure, it'll heat you right up.
And now it's a science podcast. Get us
Better
on that
not
tag.
Interior hypothesis.
That's actually a pretty good name for. Yeah, I think that's definitely the name of our fake science podcast now. Next episode, we're going to do The Batman, the one that's coming out in a couple weeks. I don't know how long it'll be as of when you guys are hearing this, but Robert Pattinson, Paul Dano, Zoe Kravitz, that one. Check out our YouTube channel and our Patreon for $1 a month. We have our merch on Zazzle. Our logo's by Kelsey Hendry. Show is on Twitter at INTAnalysis18. I am on Twitter at Ev_Wes. And where are both of you?
Twitter and Instagram at Jelani T. Kelly.
I am on Twitter and Pinterest at the Twitter Swindler, so come peep me.
Oh, no.
I was going to say, I didn't think you had a Twitter.
Really?
No, I don't. None of those accounts are real.
Oh, well, You sure it's not David Lviv official?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not that.
Okay. Until next time, don't make fun of people who have androids in your group chat.
Hey guys, I guess for this podcast we got the jobs done.
I could hear that one coming.